welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of thenationalpulse.com. More storms are brewing today here in Washington, D.C. as we move closer to this safe harbor deadline. But what does it mean? What does it matter? Does it mean anything at all? One of the Amistad Project and Thomas More Society's litigators, Tim Griffin, will be joining us later on in the show to discuss this white paper they put out yesterday that said, you know what? It's actually unprecedented. We don't know where this goes if we continue to prosecute the steal, the fraud, the statistical anomalies, the nonsense that went on at this election, this past election, last November the 3rd. Then who knows? If you've watched this show before, if you watched us when we did our AMA special with the very nice chaps at the Donald.win, you will have heard me say that exact same thing. All of these arbitrary deadlines, they're actually not constitutional. They do not reside within the United States Constitution. And therefore, if it can be proved, and I'm certain it can, that whether it's in Georgia, whether it's in Michigan, whether it's in Nevada, wherever it is in the country, if it can be proved that the numbers are not accurate, as all the statistical breakdowns are telling us, as all of the experts are telling us, as all of the pollsters who got it right are telling us, then who knows? Because the country has simply never been in a circumstance whereby electors have been chosen, perhaps even inauguration has happened, and you find millions of fraudulent ballots. You find USB sticks, you find software that flips votes. Is it any wonder that Dominion and their assistants, their useful idiots, their quislings, don't want people to go through their software? Don't want people to even go through their history as a company. GEMS. You know about GEMS? Are you familiar with GEMS? G-E-M-S. GEMS. The Global Election Management System, which even California threw out because of the way it kind of fractionalized voting and threw aside some ballots that shouldn't have been thrown aside, shouldn't have been tossed out. GEMS is another keyword for you for today. We'll be looking into more of it on thenationalpulse.com as we always do. Let's get a wide shot here. Natalie Winters is back from globetrotting, investigative work all around the world. She'll be joining us, or at least all around America. Yes. She'll be joining us later on in the show to talk about the breaking news we have up at thenationalpulse.com. The Discovery Channel working with the Chinese Communist Party. I want to bring in Heather Mullins, Real America's Voice, who's in Georgia for us right now with some updates. Heather, thank you for being there. Give us some latest breaking news on the ground there, please, Heather.
Well, the latest breaking news, Raheem, was that the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, was here this morning giving a press conference, and he said that they do plan on moving forward in certifying the election results here in Georgia. Now, this, for me, is mind-blowing because we just heard at the Georgia Senate Oversight Committee this past Thursday tons of testimony from witnesses saying things like ballots were going missing, saying that they went in to vote, but they were told somebody already voted in their name, saying that they had warehouses full of ballots left completely unsecured, and even counters saying that some ballots they came across looked like they'd been printed. So these are all the things that we just heard, in addition to seeing that video that came from State Farm Arena showing people scanning in ballots all the way up until 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, Gabriel Sterling, he's the Votum system manager for the Secretary of State's office, came out less than 24 hours after the 14-hour video was released, saying that there was no wrongdoing, observers were never told to go home. But now I'm seeing these reports from ABC News that Regina Fuller, the public affairs manager in Fulton County, admitted that they were told to go home, the observers, at 10:30 p.m. So a lot not making sense here, but yet the Secretary of State gave his press conference saying, hey, everything's fine.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you pulled up, you just retweeted this from November the 3rd. I actually screen grabbed it because no doubt ABC will try and remove this at some point. But it was at 11:34 p.m. Eastern Time on November the 3rd. And the post from ABC News Politics verified Twitter account was new. The election department sent the ballot counters at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta home at 10:30 p.m. Regina Waller, the Fulton County Public Affairs Manager for Elections, tells ABC News. But now, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, now they're claiming nobody was ever sent home. We never said that. They left of their own volition. That's even in their court filings.
Absolutely. And the other thing he mentioned in this morning's conference was that the recounts produced the same numbers and basically assured everyone that the recounts were good. Well, I've been on the ground here. I was in Floyd County. I spoke with the election board, who gave me 2 copies of numbers. The first was the numbers before their hand count, and the second was the numbers they submitted to the Secretary of State's office after their hand count. And there was a difference of about 3,062 votes. So how is he standing up here, my question to him, and saying that these recounts found nothing, because that's 3,000 votes from one county?
Yeah, that's right. Heather, we've got to jump to a break. I want to thank you for being there for us today. I'm sure we'll keep you coming back throughout the day here on Real America's Voice. I want to make sure that everybody does what the President of the United States does and follow Heather Mullins. She's at Talk Mullins on Twitter. The President has retweeted Heather a bunch of times, and no surprises there, given that she's getting to the bottom of so much there live from Georgia. Heather, once again, thank you for joining us here this afternoon. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, the author of The Russia Lie, Thomas Farnan, joins us to talk about the steal and what he's seeing take place all across America. We'll be right back. Who watches the watchers? We do. And you do, actually. If you think about the response to all of what's taken place all across the country, whether it's election related, whether it's Chinese Communist Party related, all of it. I mean, I couldn't be more proud of the group that we've put together that's going through a lot of the statistics right now. Ordinary people out there. I say ordinary. They are PhD statisticians, but they weren't tasked with this work. They came forward. They said, hey, this isn't my job. I don't do this for a living, but I'm happy to lend my skills to showing and proving and demonstrating and evidencing where the fraud is taking place. And then we have a group, we have a Discord chat channel over the National Pulse, which has hundreds of people in it all day, every day, sharing links, talking to each other, sending different bits of information, coming to different conclusions. They help me a lot in our day-to-day work, in our investigations. If you want to be part of that, you can join up at thenationalpulse.com/support. We also, by the way, have some new swag. I guess we'll put it up towards the end of the show, put together by our dear friend Anne, who is just extremely good at this stuff. We have some Still My President Trump swag over at thenationalpulse.com/swag. Waiting on Thomas Farnan here, who's going to be joining us in just a moment to talk about his extraordinary piece. But I wanted to bring you some more information just before we bring Thomas Farnan into the conversation about everything that's going on right now and everything we're covering over at the National Pulse. Natalie will talk to us towards the end of the show about the latest scoop and why it's so important, Discovery Channel. But there's also something else that you need to know, and especially something that the British audience of this show needs to know. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't apply to the Americans here. It absolutely does. Because as we know, whether it's the Sun newspaper, the Daily Mail, the BBC, the Guardian, all of those have massive influence in the United States. They all project into the United States. They all have US operations. All these fake news outlets, or hard left news outlets that masquerade as centrist, they all push information into the US. And there's a group that's coming together right now. It's called The Citizens. The Citizens. And it involves Christopher Steele. It involves a lady called Carol Cadwalladr. Now, who's Carol Cadwalladr? Carol Cadwalladr is a Guardian reporter. I say reporter. Is a Guardian activist, newspaper activist, who for the last 4 or 5 years has basically been concocting and confecting fake stories about Russian involvement in the Brexit campaign, the campaign for Britain to leave the European Union. Well, Carole Cadwalladr has landed herself in a bit of trouble, expensive trouble as well, making fake allegations about Brexit financiers like Arron Banks that are just not true. She's had to remove her truth of defense claim in court. That is to say that she's no longer going to go in court and say, hey, I published this because I believed it to be true. She's now going to be claiming that her lies about Russians being behind Brexit were simply a public interest story. How's a lie in the public interest? And Carole Cadwalladr is associated with this new group, the Citizens. And the Citizens say outright on their website for everybody to see, their mission statement is that they are going to be actively engaged, involved in influencing US politics. But the Citizens is not a US entity. And it doesn't have Americans at its helm. No, the Citizens is a private, limited UK company that fundraises off the back of censoring American speech. Which Americans? Well, they announced it this week. They announced that their first target to have all of the content removed from social media, their first target is none other than Stephen K. Bannon. It says so right on their social media. Here you go, on your screen, right here. The UK pro-censorship group featuring Christopher Steele vows to interfere in US politics and force Facebook to ban Bannon. I want to be very clear about this because I'm not Carole Cadwalladr, very far from it. I don't own 15 cats for a start. They have admitted this in their own words. I am not leaping. We are not connecting separate dots here and coming to our own conclusions. This is in their own words. If we can get that article back up, please, and just scroll down it so that people can see in their own words what this foreign-funded, foreign group is threatening to do for US politics and public life. It is an absolute disgrace. It is a national security issue. The President of the United States should be calling Boris Johnson right now and saying, hey, what the hell do you think you're doing? Allowing foreign citizens to interfere in US politics. I want to bring in Thomas Farnham. We've got about 2 minutes left here in this segment. Bring in Thomas Farnham, the author of The Russia Lie. Just want to hit you with that bit of information, Thomas, because Christopher Steele is involved. I'm not sure if you saw this story up on the nationalpulse.com. If you didn't, just tell me to shove it. But Chris Steele, Carole Cadwalladr, the same group that told us the Russians were involved in Brexit, you know, the UK's very own Russia Lie, are now committing to have US citizens removed from social media platforms. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's, this global elite that's behind this stuff and that was behind the Russia Lie very much operates through people like Christopher Steele. So you get that kind of thing. You get them telling a lie about Russian interference in the last election. They don't like what you're saying or what you're doing, so they'd rather you be off of social media. They can't exist in a world where they have to face the truth and consequences. And I think that's what you have. You have my book there up on the screen, my short ebook. You read that and the truth is unvarnished. You can't read that and not say that there's something deeply wrong here, where you can have institutions corrupting our politics like this and nobody doing anything about it.
Right. Thomas, I completely agree with you. We're going to bring you back for the next segment here to talk more about your op-ed up at thenationalpulse.com. But before we go, I want to round this off for the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, here's why Discovery, the Discovery Channel, matters as a part of all of this as well, and why we're pulling back the curtain on so much of this right now. The Spectator magazine, which I've talked about before on this show, for those that follow me on Twitter, you know I'm not a big fan. The Spectator magazine, the chairman is Andrew Neil, worked at the BBC for, I think, 25 years. He's now starting a thing called GB News. And people had hoped it was going to be an antidote to the BBC, an antidote to The Guardian, a slightly more right-wing news channel. But Discovery, the same channel that's working, the same network that's working with the Chinese Communist Party, has a massive stake in GB TV, GB News. And Andrew Neil, the chairman, just said on Twitter 2 days ago that he is pro-immigration, supports amnesty for illegal immigrants. Some right-wing news channel, eh? We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the National Pulse. Straight back to it with Thomas Farnan, the author of The Russia Lie. You can get that for just $5, and I highly recommend it at therussialie.com. It's published in conjunction with the National Pulse. I personally went through it, and it didn't need much editing, Tom, but I'll say I edited it as well, just to take some of the credit for your awesome work walking people through what exactly took place in 2016 and beyond, with all of the investigations and all of that. Everything that you need to know is in therussialie.com. But Thomas, for you, that made it all the more important to be studying what's taken place at this last election. You know, you can't understand the finesse, the steal, unless you understand, you know, what Christopher Steele and all of the people around him and who directed him did in 2016. So my question to you is, you're out there in the real country, not here in Washington, D.C. like us. What is your sense of what's going on out there?
I think there's a disappointment that there was not a consequence to the attempt to steal the 2016 election. By the time, by a year ago, we pretty much knew everything that had happened. They had manufactured Russian interference. They had manufactured Russia collusion. Hillary Clinton had used those canards in her campaign to try to defeat Trump. Trump wins anyway. They undertake an investigation with no basis. They put people in jail. They get a FISA warrant on Carter Page with no basis. And there should have been a great deal of consequence for that. There's a concept, in this country where you're watching a baseball game and the umpire has to set the strike zone. And in a football game, unless the referee calls penalties, the game gets out of hand. And I think the sense that people have right now is that the game is out of hand, because those people in Washington that are supposed to police corruption surrounding elections did not do it. And based on all the statistical anomalies, we think something wrong happened.
Now, Thomas, your article is up on the National Pulse. It did incredibly well yesterday. We put it up. It's very well written. I rarely do this after one of our authors publishes with us, but I even reached out to you to say, wow, this is just incredibly well put together and succinct and but also detailed at the same time. And you call ballot harvesting, which is what we know has been one of the critical ways that the left stole this last election. Ballot harvesting, you say, is one of the most systematically racist practices, if not the most systematically racist practice in modern day America. Is that hyperbole? What did you mean by that?
I meant that if you have big corporations going into the inner city and throwing money around, and combining this private money with public institutions to get Joe Biden elected, that is manifestly, patently corrupt. It's not right. I know you covered the Center for Technology and Civic Life in October at the National Pulse, and you said they're putting hundreds of millions of dollars into this effort in the inner city. And you issued this warning, and people should be more offended by that. If it was Halliburton and not Facebook going into the inner city to cultivate votes in this manner, we would be rightly outraged, and people should be outraged about that. Now, how much of it was, this compulsion at the point of attack to get people to sign these ballots, and how much was manufacturing ballots? Unfortunately, we didn't have our observers to observe. There were no signature matches. There was not enough oversight to make sure that wasn't happening. And if you're manufacturing votes from the inner city, I can't think of many things more racist. You're using non-existent black votes to advocate, to advance a policy that they have nothing to do with. And I compared it to the 3/5 compromise in the United States Constitution, where the southern states, in enacting the United States Constitution, said, wait a second, you have to count our slaves in the population counts, so we have more representatives in Congress and we have a greater number of electors in the Electoral College. And the Northerners said, wait, those slaves don't vote. Why would we count them so that you can ostensibly use their vote to act against them? And you came up with at the Constitutional Convention, they came up with the 3/5 compromise that said 3 out of 5 slaves would be counted to assess the population of the southern states, which was wildly unfair and led to wild overrepresentation for the slaveholders. Arguably, we could have avoided the Civil War had it been a pure democracy, had the North had the electoral power it should have had and enacted legislation against slavery like it wanted to do. So that's what I compared it to.
Thomas, should ballot, I mean, I'm surprised it isn't, and it isn't in my country and it isn't in this country. Do you think ballot harvesting should be outright illegal across the country?
Yes, I do. And I think Republicans should fight much harder on that. And I think what the other side has done is gone into the inner city, into the black neighborhoods to do it, because anytime the Republicans push back there, they're accused of racism. You guys are the bad guys. You guys are the racists. Biden began his campaign, I believe, at the convention by repeating the very fine people hoax.
Right.
This was a campaign built around racial hoaxes. And Republicans too readily stand down to that. That's the behavior we're seeing in Washington now. That's the behavior we're seeing among local officials. The only Republican that really stands up to that is Trump. And that accounts for the 74 million and the great appreciation that they have for him.
Yeah, and actually the increase in popularity amongst the African-American vote for certain. Tom, we've got to leave it there because we're right at the end of the segment here. But Thomas Farnan, just remind our audience where they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at @TFarnanLaw, and the same handle on Parler.
@TFarnanLaw, and make sure that you check out therussialie.com. It's a very quick read, but it's comprehensive, tells you everything you need to know. If you want to understand what's taking place now, you have to understand how they teed it all up and how so few people were ever held to account. We're going to be back in just a moment with Tim Griffin from the Thomas More Society. There's more CTCL after this break. All right, welcome back to the National Pulse here on Real America's Voice. I want to make sure that you're all downloading the Real America's Voice apps. I personally have one on my Apple TV. Helps me watch every single show. You get the best clips from every single show. You can follow along, get all the breakdown of everything that's taking place here on a real news network. Isn't that just something of a rarity nowadays? I want to thank all of our staff and producers for working around the clock to help make Real America's Voice work. I know it's especially taxing during an election, and doubly when the election period drags on into the holiday period and beyond. And while we're all celebrating happy Christmas here at Real America's Voice, we're all going to continue working to highlight what's going on out there. In terms of the steal taking place, we'll be joined by the Thomas More Society's Tim Griffin in just a moment. But I wanted to bring you just some images of the swag I was mentioning before. I got so many people emailing me, and there's a tips line on the National Pulse website saying, hey, Christmas is coming up. We want to get some cool stuff for our family members, and even for the people who don't particularly think that the president won this last election. So I went back again to Anne and said, hey, I need you to design us something that shows that Donald Trump is still the president and that people can embrace that. So we put these together, very simple, nice silhouette of the president there. It says, "Still my president." You can get that on a mug or a t-shirt or a mask or a hoodie or whatever you like. And with rush shipping, you'll still receive it by Christmas. So you can go to thenationalpulse.com/swag, SWAG, and get your Still My President swag there. Every penny you spend supporting us goes to making our website better, our reporting better, get more news stories up, get to more people. And I think that's what you want. I hope that's what you want. I hope that's why you're watching this show. You can see all the different items there. You've got the CCP takedown, the CCP stuff, Where's Hunter, fundrealnews.com, the National Pulse itself. And we're going to keep, Biden's laptop matters, one of my favorites. We're going to keep adding to the store as time goes on. I want to thank Anne, for our designer, for doing all of that for us as well. And by the way, she makes a mean cookie. We had some National Pulse branded cookies. I'm sure you saw that. All right, I want to get back to the news here as well while we're waiting for Tim Griffin to join us from the Amistad Project, from the Thomas More Society. I'm going to go back through a little bit of the news as it appears on thenationalpulse.com, specifically as it pertains to the Amistad Project. So the story is that the safe harbor deadline you're being told about, and that we've talked about for months and months, this is one of the federal legal deadlines, the safe harbor deadline. You can see it on your screen there, another of the breaking stories that we put up over the course of the last couple of days. The safe harbor deadline for electors is not constitutional and does not apply to disputed states. That is in the words of the Amistad Project themselves, the election fraud watchdog that we've had on this show since October, as Thomas Farnham noted in that last segment there. And they actually put out a white paper which goes through all of this. Now, I think and I hope that you will all find it important as citizens of the United States to go through this and understand what the arguments are. It's 7 pages, very short, very easy to read, all cited. Everything's there in black and white for you to understand. So if you go, and you can see it scrolling on your screens now, the team does such a good job of bringing things up when we talk about them here on the show. You go to thenationalpulse.com, you can read through that white paper yourselves. This is put together by legal experts. And even if you just want to check out the executive summary of this to understand exactly what the basis of their argument is, it's an incredibly important document, and it will help you push back, whether you're arguing with people in real life, whether you're actually active on the ground somewhere and helping stop this steal, whether it's with your family members and your friends, whether it's on Twitter and social media, whatever it is. It will help you push back against the arguments that we're inevitably going to hear over the next 24 hours, which is that this is over. The deadline has passed. Safe harbor has been reached. But there is no constitutional requirement that makes safe harbor a thing. Yes, it's federal law, sure. But when fraud is involved, the Constitution of the United States trumps anything else. And we're going to be talking with Tim Griffin and the team in just a moment here on the National Pulse. I want to take you now to some of the other breaking stories that we've had up. And I want to point this out to you. Can we get a homepage of the National Pulse up, guys? All right. So you see right beneath the first sort of third of the site there, 2/3 of the site there, you've got this breaking section. A lot of people don't know. You can actually click breaking in that little thing, and it will take you to all of the latest breaking stories. So if we can click breaking, see where it says breaking right under read more, let's click breaking, and you can see it will take you to all of what these are shorter stories, buried leads, and things that people need to know that Natalie Winters goes through, and she aggregates important information in that breaking section. So whether it's the Democrat Senate chair last year saying there is not one reason to buy Dominion Systems, quote, reeks of corruption, and nobody else will talk about this. Well, we've got that up. We've got that up at the National Pulse. So if it's the Michigan lieutenant governor attending Chinese Communist Party conferences, which nobody else will talk about, we've got that up there. Whether it's Black Lives Matter registering as a political party in the United Kingdom, well, we've got that up. And it's a whole host of stories, all cited, all with facts, all with statistics, all with data, all with links that don't warrant 1,000 words being written about them, but maybe 100, 200, and then a link back to the source. That I want you all to know out there that we also have your back on that. So make sure you're checking out the breaking section. I want to bring on, just before we go to a break, I want to bring on Tim Griffin here from the Thomas More Society, who's joining us down the line. Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, so we've got to go to a break in just 60 seconds, so summarize very quickly. What are we talking about here in terms of the safe harbor deadline? Because I was told that's it, game over.
Yeah, it's coming up tomorrow. So right now, the courts need to act to protect people's rights. If the deadline's not moved back by tomorrow, it's going to make it hard for these different state lawsuits to be heard. And remember, these aren't just lawsuits; these are real people with real concerns in real courts, and they have due process rights to be heard. So that's what's going to be happening in the next 24 to 48 hours.
All right, just hang around. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll bring you back, Tim, special counsel with the Amistad Project and Thomas More Society. This is the National Pulse. Got Natalie Winter still going to be walking us through the Discovery Channel working with the Chinese Communist Party. A big breaking news story over at thenationalpulse.com. I want to thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen, who are going over there, making last month the biggest ever traffic month for thenationalpulse.com. So pleased that you've got it favorited in your browser and that you're sharing the stories. We'll be back with Tim Griffin after this short break. Okay, welcome back. Tim Griffin of the Thomas More Society and Amistad Project joins us. Now, Tim, thank you for your time today. I want to understand this. You guys are the legal minds. You understand far more about this than I do. So the deadline is what? December the 8th. Let's just explain to us, why does this deadline even exist in the first instance? Why why isn't the election until we clear up all of the, challenges and court cases? That seems more logical, doesn't it?
It does. And in a normal election year, I think that could have been done pretty easily if people had voted in person and they had received their ballot and we knew exactly who had won. But this year was unlike any other year because most people voted by a mail-in ballot. And with those ballots coming from all across the country, I mean, if you think about it, it's the difference between one person touching your ballot or 20 or more people touching your ballot between when it gets sent to you and when it gets received again. So things are all up in the air, and that's why it's different than past election years.
That's a very good point. I mean, the chain of custody on these things is extraordinary and extraordinarily convoluted. And we're starting to see all these weird excuses coming out from people across all the country. Oh, the USB stick was left in this desk, but it's okay. We know it wasn't tampered with. How do you know? Well, nobody would do that. And then we're getting, there was a pipe burst in the middle of the night. No, it wasn't a pipe burst. A urinal overflowed. Okay, what else? These boxes, it's perfectly logical and reasonable to count suitcases of boxes after people were asked to leave. No, we never asked them to leave. We just told them that counting was over. What's the difference, right? They're going to leave if they think counting is over, the election monitors. So let me ask you this question. What is your position on the deadline here? Are you asking for the deadline to be erased, shifted? How long?
It has to be moved back right now. I mean, really, the logical date would be January 19th, before the next president takes office. The reality is that there are people out there right now who have filed suit and said, we have concerns as voters. We have concerns as taxpayers. And if we don't let those people be heard and go through the proper court process and we just cut them off because of an arbitrary deadline in December, it really doesn't matter. It could be done in January easily. There's no reason to rush this process. And all we're saying is that we need a little bit more time.
Is that just for this election, or is that in perpetuity? What would you like to see?
Yeah, I think normally in the legal lingo, we call it an as-applied challenge. We're not saying it's unconstitutional every year, but this year, under these circumstances, when you're disenfranchising these voters who have filed suit, as applied, this deadline of December 8th and December 14th for the Electoral College is unconstitutional. What we need to do is move it back to January and give these voters a fair hearing.
So what is the argument here? And again, forgive me for being sort of a layman in these terms. What is the argument here behind this deadline not being constitutional? Where did this deadline even come from?
So it's just by statute. It's a congressional statute, and I believe it was passed in the 1940s. So this was a long time ago, right? You and me are talking live by video camera right now. We have planes where we can actually fly people to D.C. or we can fly people, the Electoral College, to meet. There's so many different ways to meet right now, and we can do it so quickly. When this statute was passed, it was a much different time, right? So it made sense that you had to spread things out far in advance. You would want these decisions to be made in December because it would take until January for all those decisions to come down. So it makes sense the way they passed it, but this is a different time and a different age, and we have different requirements right now.
How optimistic are you, Tim, about getting this, about your filing, about getting the deadline moved? And how does that process, who would be the arbiter of that?
Well, I think it needs to get filed in the District Court of Washington, D.C. first, and you hope that a judge will rule with you. I mean, we're not ruling on behalf of lawyers. We're saying voters are asking that you rule for them so that they can still have time to get this done. And honestly, it doesn't matter who wins the presidency as long as the voters are heard and this is all fairly done. I think the American people will support whoever wins the presidency, but it has to be clear, and these lawsuits have to be cleared up prior.
This was one of the key points made by, the Transition Integrity Project and the book, The Ballot Battles book that they base so much of their research on, was that, hey, people should not and cannot in the 21st century be disenfranchised in any way. And now you have the left saying, no, full speed ahead. We must lock in these electors. Look, I get it. It's politicking. We're not surprised at any of that. But their own arguments are against them now, Tim, aren't they?
Absolutely. And our whole thing is let's no matter if they're a Republican voter or a Democrat voter, let's give them time to be heard in court. And I think I was a trial attorney for years. If people are heard, even if they don't win, they feel like at least they were heard and at least their arguments were considered and we can move forward together. But without that, it makes it very difficult to move forward.
Yeah. Tim, just remind the audience, where can they get more from you guys? Where can they follow you? Where can they donate to your work? Where can they read this white paper?
So we've got it posted up at our got-freedom.org website, and that's where they can find more about the Amistad Project and the Got Freedom Project.
Really grateful for your time. Tim Griffin, the Amistad Project and the Thomas More Society. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Well, I think he's hopeful. I think he's right. I think he's hopeful, though. A district court in Washington, D.C. agreeing to push back the time frame on this thing is a tall order. It's a heavy lift. It's a big ask. Frame it as however you want to. But there's one thing that can be for certain, and that is in times of just graven corruption and the most grievous fraud that we've ever seen take place in an election in the United States, there are people who are riding to the sound of the guns, and the Thomas More Society and the Amistad Project and Phil Klein and the whole crew are certainly one of those groups that have come together, not massively backed by big corporations or anything like that, but who've rode to the sound of the guns and said, hey, we are going to make sure that every single part of this is investigated. We are going to make sure that nobody is disenfranchised. We're going to make sure that no illegal vote is counted, or at least try to ensure that. And I think everybody who's a part of all of that needs the greatest clap, applause, credit for being involved with that. When we come back from the next break, I'm going to talk to you about something that we're increasingly going to have to start looking at as the courts and as so many people out there are reminding us on a day-to-day basis that without justice, without real application of the law here, then Joe Biden will march into the Oval Office on January the 20th. If the Constitution is tossed aside and fraud is allowed to dictate this last election, you have to have a contingency plan. And the contingency plan comes on doing accurate reporting around Joe Biden, around his cronies, around the big corporates that have backed him, around the editorial positions that have carried the fraud through almost to the Oval Office. And one of the big corporations that's in bed with the Chinese Communist Party is the Discovery Networks. And what are they doing? We're going to tell you in just a moment when we return from the break. Head on over to thenationalpulse.com/support. We need every single patriot out there to support what we're doing. Thank you. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the National Pulse. I've just been advised in the break that I am required to purchase Natalie Winters a Christmas present. Is that true?
Yes.
Why is that? Why am
I got you a great one.
I got some cookies. You want some cookies?
No,
You got some
I think I
National
want
Pulse
stuff
cookies?
from the National Pulse online store.
Now that I can do. That we can do. You can get you a Still My President mask. Yeah, I'll get you a discount code for Christmas.
Okay.
How about that? All right, Natalie, you've got a big breaking story up here right now, and we even asked you before we went to air, hey, is this an exclusive for us? And you said yes. Nobody has picked up on this. How does nobody pick up on this? The Discovery Channel, big network, huge network, not just working with the Chinese Communist Party, but they use the phrase under the instruction and supervision in their own press releases about this.
Yes,
Tell us more.
So that quote is a direct lift from the Chinese Communist Party government in Hunan province, where they put out a local news press release on this show, which is called The Day I Ran China. It was recently renewed for a second season, and they feature young entrepreneurs from all over the world. They come to China, they come to different provinces, and basically it's straight up propaganda to show how China is developing. Then when you go to the Discovery Channel's press release on the matter, it seriously reads like it is straight out of a Chinese Communist Party press release, peddling talking points.
Well, hold on. When you say that, I want you to explain to the audience, because you know a lot about how the Chinese government phrases things, how they ship, because this is all you do all day, is go through their documents, their data, the FARA filings, everything. So you know what the kind of linguistics are like. So talk to us about, even on Discovery's end, it seems like it's been penned by a CCP apparatchik.
Definitely. So on PR Newswire, which is a very common website that many huge multinational corporates use to say, we've launched a new project, look at this. Discovery similarly used this site. They, in their release, they not only effectively commemorate the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, but they go on to say, quote, in the past several years, China's science and technology, alongside its culture and economy, have gone through stages of tremendous development and witnessed massive changes, bringing about great changes in the country's industries and jobs. So not only is that pretty much a blatant lie, only members of the Chinese Communist Party have experienced this economic growth, while your average Chinese citizen has really seen their own earnings go way down. Right. But they're praising their development as something that is applying monolithically to every Chinese citizen, which is a really strong talking point that the Chinese Communist Party uses. You see this in documents coming out of their National People's Congress, any speech by Xi, and frankly, you even see this diction that is really similar to what the Chinese Communist Party uses in the theme of their second season, which is none other than, quote, exploring the development of a new socialist countryside to the world. Again, it's the fact that they're explaining a socialist countryside developing to the world might stand out to many people, but that's really a slogan that the Chinese Communist Party uses, talking about how they're creating a new form of socialism, which runs similar to their use of the term opening up. But it's really astonishing, and what's also really concerning.
How is this even allowed, is my question.
Well, speaking of how this is allowed, something that's not allowed is the United States, our federal agencies, using a company called DJI drones, using their, whether it's vehicles or drones that fly in the sky, to monitor and surveil America and its citizens. Nonetheless, this Discovery program features several segments where they have the entrepreneurs who are participating in the show visiting DJI factories.
Right. Wasn't this one of the first stories you ever did at the National Pulse, was about the DJI drones?
I didn't write it.
Okay.
I helped edit it, I think. But no, we've been covering that for some time. If you remember, if the viewers remember, they actually gifted very suspicious gift to police departments, and these police departments, I believe it was in Florida, and they used them. But since then, there's really been a large push on behalf of lawmakers to cancel contracts with DJI drones, because I believe it was in 2016, a company spokesman in a press conference said that they would, quote, comply with requests from the Chinese Communist Party with regards to handing over data if they deem it necessary.
That's right. We've got about 3 minutes left in the show here, Natalie. I want to hit a few other of the stories that you've been covering over at the National Pulse over the last couple of days. Specifically, Fareed Zakaria and Biden advisors attending this pro-CCP conference. Can you tell us more?
Sure. So this conference, which we had previously covered,
Yeah.
I realized through the links to the Transition Integrity Project through Nicholas Berggruen, who runs the Berggruen Institute, which one of those the co-founder of that project serves as a high-level position, executive, some form at that group. But this conference, I believe it's been going on for over 6 years. Every year they've gotten a very, very positive letter from none other than Xi Jinping praising the conference. Sometimes he even attends the conference and speaks at it, obviously not this year due to coronavirus. But nonetheless, this year attendees included Fareed Zakaria, who we've also highlighted as serving as a fellow at a Chinese Communist Party-funded Marxist journalism school, but he attended...
Just slow down there, because you're reeling things off like in a way that it's just totally normal. But the audience will be, and we get a growing audience, day upon day more people tune into the show and listen. So for the audience who's never encountered what you've just said before, Fareed Zakaria, CNN anchor, does what?
Yes, so at the Tsinghua University School of Global Business Journalism, it's a mouthful, I'm aware, they have a program where they effectively train the next generation of leaders, of writers for the whole media landscape in China, whether that's China Global Television Network, China Daily, and these are all outlets that have been designated by our own government as foreign propaganda missions, effectively. All they do is peddle narratives from the Chinese Communist Party. This school in particular, if you read the dean's letter, he describes it outright as a, quote, Marxist journalism school where their sole purpose is to peddle content that's, quote, in line with the Chinese Communist Party. And I believe a former Facebook vice president also served as a fellow there, but also Fareed Zakaria served as a visiting lecturer or visiting fellow, one of those positions at this school. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg with his involvement with the Chinese Communist Party.
It's absolutely unreal. And we'll have to hit this again tomorrow, but just finally, I wanted to make the audience aware of, last week I told you to cover this story about or asked you rather, to cover the story of the Smartmatic chairman, Soros linked. And just a few days later, what happens?
He was promoted to president within the Open Society Foundation.
The big Soros group. So Smartmatic, the Dominion, whole thing going on there, and suddenly Lord Malloch Brown, who everybody says, oh, conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy theory. He's not responsible for any of this stuff. He's not involved with Soros. Dominion, Smartmatic, totally separate. No. And you know it, why? He just got promoted yesterday to the president of the Open Society Foundations. That's Soros's big org. See you again tomorrow at 3 p.m.